For decades, science textbooks have shown human evolution as a neat, straight line. The famous March of Progress graphic shows small, hunched apes slowly standing up, their brains passively swelling generation after generation, until eventually a fully formed human picks up a tool. The assumption is that we got smart first, and then we invented technology. A recent discovery at Gona, Ethiopia, fractures that timeline. Researchers unearthed a fossilized skull known as Dan5, dating back 1.5 million years. Physical analysis of Dan5 presents a biological paradox. The top of the skull features the enlarged, advanced brain case of a Homo erectus, but the front of the skull retains the primitive, protruding facial structure and large teeth of a much older ancestor, Homo habilis. The context of the dig site deepens the mystery. The team found the Dan5 skull surrounded by a mixture of stone tools from two entirely different eras. Simple, crude stone choppers lay right alongside advanced, carefully shaped hand axes in the exact same layer of dirt. A mismatched skull surrounded by a mismatched toolkit shows that early hominins were caught in a messy transition. Our ancestors didn't simply evolve large brains in a vacuum and then decide to make tools. The act of creating and using technology actively reached back and re-engineered human biology. About 2.5 million years ago, early hominins had adapted to walking upright on two legs. This shift to bipedalism freed their hands, allowing them to grasp objects and solve basic, immediate problems in their environment. Their solution was the Oldowan tool method. Hominins would take a round stone cobble and forcefully strike it with another rock, shearing off a sharp, jagged flake to use for cutting. Then, roughly 1.7 million years ago, the archaeological record shows a massive leap in complexity. Hominins began crafting the Acheulean Handaxe, a tool defined by its deliberate, symmetrical teardrop shape. Crafting a symmetrical object out of a blank cobble requires a cognitive ability called a mental template. The toolmaker has to visualize an abstract, final shape inside the raw stone and plan dozens of precise strikes to achieve it, long before the first blow is struck. Executing that sequence relies heavily on the prefrontal cortex, or PFC. This region at the very front of the brain handles sequential planning and complex problem-solving and impulse control. To consistently produce hand axes, this specific brain region had to physically upgrade. Symmetrical stones left in the dirt are the earliest physical proof we have of a forward-thinking, internally reorganized brain. Brain tissue is metabolically expensive. In modern humans, the brain makes up only about 2% of body weight, but consumes 20% of the body's total energy. Growing a larger prefrontal cortex required a massive, consistent caloric surplus. The Acheulean Handaxe provided those calories. These sharp, durable tools allowed early humans to efficiently butcher large game and crack open bones to access highly nutritious, fat-rich bone marrow. This diagram maps the biocultural feedback loop. Advanced tools secured a meat diet, providing fuel to increase the encephalization quotient, or EQ, comparing actual brain size to expected size. As brain volume increased, an inverse effect occurred. With tools doing the heavy cutting, hominins no longer needed massive, robust jaws and facial muscles. The face shrunk. This explains the Dan5 fossil. A skull with a modern brain case and a primitive jaw is a snapshot of a species caught in the middle of this cycle. Stone tools fed early humans, and by taking over the mechanical work of digestion, they physically shrunk the hominin face while carving out room for an expanding cranium over millions of years. The Acheulean Handaxe represents the first time a hominin took an internal mental concept and projected it into a permanent object in the outside physical world. It is a piece of externalized memory. Because crafting these tools required such intense skill and precision, early humans had to teach the method to their young. They had to imitate each other, correct mistakes, and communicate complex sequences of actions. This social complexity required individuals to understand the intentions of others and navigate group hierarchies. Managing those relationships placed even more demand on the prefrontal cortex, linking individual minds together into a cooperative cultural superbrain. This chart tracks hominin brain size over the last 2 million years. You can see the steady climb driven by tools and diet. But notice the sharp, distinct dip at the end of the graph. Over the last 3,000 years, the average human brain size has actually decreased. Anthropologists attribute this decline to a process called cognitive offloading. This is the act of using the physical environment to store information and reduce the mental demand on the brain. As humans developed written language, vast social institutions, and eventually computers, we outsourced memory to our environment. We no longer needed to maintain the biological tissue required to store all that information internally. Modern humans tend to view computers, cities, and spacecraft as the natural byproducts of our vast intelligence. The last 1.5 million years of evolution proved the exact opposite. Our intelligence is a byproduct of our technology.